Hey, and welcome to The Solid Verbal. Now would be a perfect time to consider subscribing. Yeah, that little subscribe button for year-round premium college football content. That's it. Here's the video. Enjoy. Subscribe.
Welcome back to The Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildebrandt. That fine gentleman over there, the one, the only, still the incomparable Dan Rubenstein. Sir, it is game week, dog. It is week one game week. How are you?
Good. It is full game week because for Illinois fans and Northwestern fans and Florida A&M fans and North Carolina fans, it was game week last week, but full-on college football from sea to shining sea game week is this one. Now, bit of an appetizer episode because the full week one preview is coming very shortly as we're recording this earlier on in the week. But man, the juices are flowing, Ty. I am feeling it.
Most people will have access to this show on Wednesday morning, the full-fledged preview this week in week one, and every subsequent week throughout the course of the year will be Thursday mornings. We've adjusted our schedule a little bit here. We will keep you as up to speed with any scheduling changes as we go through, as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But before we go any further, this episode, all of our episodes driven by our good friends over at Geico. This is a smoke signal, a big flashing red light, whatever type, a bat signal, whatever it is that does it for you to prompt action. We are urging you once more, playruntheboard.com. Playruntheboard.com. You have until noon, kickoff, week one, that is Saturday, September 3rd, if you are ever so inclined to get in on the action and be part of our season-long, what do we want to call it?
The most prestigious, most important college football pick'em pool.
Say that one more time.
The most prestigious, most important college football pick'em pool.
It is called Run the Board. If you win the thing, if you finish in the top 5, you get to join our board of trustees. There's an annual meeting. You get access to some stuff, frankly, that others don't. So it's exclusive. You compete against us, compete against the Verballerhood. PlayRunTheBoard.com if you are ever so inclined. There are also people watching this now live. We have updated our Patreon benefit tiers such that every episode we do is live streamed to a select few, a select crowd, a select grouping of Verballers out at Verballers.com. If you are ever so inclined, again, go on out to Verballers.com and check out more of what we have to offer. You can get early access. You can also vote in another new thing, which is going to be Verballer polls that we will include as part of the content in these here episodes throughout the course of the year. As I was saying a little bit before in our preamble for the people who are watching live, we are fully steering into interactivity.
Yeah.
This season. So I'm very excited about what the season has in store.
Yeah, the sheer numbers of people who smelled your hair at the live show proves that we are steering into interactivity. Nobody smelled your hair, thankfully. You are bearing the lead a little bit here, Ty, because you sort of said for most of you, you'll be hearing previews on Thursday. For most of you, you'll be hearing the show on Wednesday. And for most of you, you'll be hearing our recap show on Monday. If you want early access, if you want to hear our preview show on Wednesdays, like perhaps you're used to. If you want to hear the recap show Sunday midday-ish, early afternoon-ish Eastern time, like you're used to, Verballers.com for early access to just scoop up that content while it's hot.
The violent scoop, as a wise man told me in Chicago. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, welcome, hit the subscribe button. So here is where things stand. Week one is afoot. We've got our preview content baking in the oven. You will hear, most of you, as Dan said, will hear that on Thursday, though some can hear it early on Wednesday. Why don't we just jump in? I'm not going to do the breaking news primal scream that I would normally do because I got to save these pipes for the weekend.
You've got some weak pipes. Let's be clear. Every so often, for as professional and as booming as you are, your pipe issues are vast, Ty.
I do have pipe issues, yeah.
Breaking news.
Beep, beep. I do have some pipe issues, yes. Sunday morning after the live show, I sounded like a rusty gate, but we are back. We are hopefully better than ever, and I played the breaking news drop because we did not have ample opportunity to go through and recap what transpired in week 0, the appetizer week, as you so rightfully coined it earlier in our episode. Nebraska lost, Dan.
They did.
Nebraska lost. We talked a little bit about it at the Fantasy Things show, but Nebraska went up early 14-3. They end up surrendering that lead. They end up losing late in the game to Northwestern. Of course, they played that one over in Ireland. They gave Pat Fitzgerald the cool crystal helmet trophy, which is awesome. Just an awesome thing that they did. Not a great start to the new Scott Frost era at Nebraska, the one that we had been prepping for all offseason. Despite the fact that he changed offensive coordinators, that he brought over Casey Thompson from Texas, it seemed as if the gameplay installed in the second half. Northwestern played a little bit of bully ball, which, look, Pat Fitzgerald would love to play that brand of football if he can. And ultimately, the Cats get it done in Ireland.
Yeah, as it turns out, the redemption story was on the field in the Nebraska game. It just wasn't wearing red.
That's right. That's right.
It was just Northwestern with Ryan Helinski. Like, it's very easy to say the story here is Nebraska making the changes that they did in the offseason with hopes of going to a bowl and hoping to make dramatic improvement, which, to be clear, they still may. It was week 0. And so there is ample opportunity for Nebraska to regroup and win some games. But the actual redemption arc thus far is Northwestern proving that it can move the ball, it can generate some chunk plays, that it could protect the quarterback. Obviously, they have one of the best left tackles in the country in Peter Skoronski, but they came up with timely stops. They forced turnovers. It was a Northwestern team. Again, week 0. There's a lot of time for things to go wrong or right for both of these teams. But to play like they did, considering the travel, considering the weird scenario, the story to me is nationally probably Nebraska because of the size of that program and the expectations of that program. But the actual redemption arc was wearing purple and I guess a little bit of white and green and orange on those helmets. But
yep, they had the Irish flag in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the sub story to me, Ty, before you can jump in with your analysis of this game, is there are a lot of amazing things about you, Ty. If we're going to make this personal, but your ability to channel your inner, I think it was Dora, which was the fish from Finding Nemo that would forget things every 30 seconds. Dory, excuse me, not Dora, Dory. And you're like, Nebraska's just going to demolish this team like they did last year. And yet, Nebraska looked exactly like they did for 95% of last year and lost in the very specific way they lost games last year, despite all that was new. And you're a romantic, I get it. But the confidence you displayed was just, mwah.
The appetizer lock did not go so hot. If I'm being honest,
agree.
It did not look a whole lot different from last season. Different quarterback and different stadium, and Scott Frost looking just jacked. I don't know what he's doing, what kind of weight program he's on,
but he's a bunch getting there. Yeah,
he's definitely buying into whatever the strength coach is doing and going full bouncer with this thing. But Scott Frost not getting the job done. Kudos to Pat Fitzgerald going across the pond and getting the job done. Elsewhere in college football, we had Drake Maye, new quarterback for UNC, tossing 5 touchdown passes to beat Florida A&M. Florida A&M in a bit of turmoil. I'm not sure if you saw that, but sort of in open conflict with the administration based on eligibility rules and a whole host of other things. So not a great situation right now at Florida A&M. The players going like full varsity blues and playing for themselves, not necessarily the institution or the coaches or the administration. Drake Maye looked good in his first start, but I know we will point out the oddity of the point spread going into their week 1 matchup against App State.
Yes.
Which has jumped around a little bit. Initially, they were favored by 2, then App State was favored. Now I think it's come back in the direction of UNC, but suffice to say, there's a lot of uncertainty around where Vegas stands, where bettors stand with respect to UNC here in week 1 versus App State. Interesting game by any measure. We also had Florida State winning by 40 over Duquesne. They outgained the Dukes by a healthy margin, almost 500 yards, which isn't a great surprise. What is a surprise, though, is that Vandy won by 53 on the road in Hawaii. They put up 601 total yards and rushed for a shade over 400. So Clark Lee playing a little bit of bully ball, asserting his will, asserting that SEC dominance, if you will, on the ground, and getting the job done in a big way over in the Hawaiian Islands. And what else do I have here? Utah State came from behind early.
Yeah.
They won by 11 over UConn. They fell behind 14-0 in the first quarter before they started to assert their will. Dan, what stood out to you in week 0 beyond that Nebraska/Northwestern redemption arc, non-redemption arc story?
I'm not going to follow your instructions or directions. What stood out to me was Nebraska going for that onside kick, blowing a double-digit lead, Casey Thompson making some unbelievable plays, but then rifling in that 4-yard pass that got tipped for essentially a game-sealing interception. That stood out to me because those were the games, or that was the game between two Power 5 opponents that I think has the most meaningful implications. But really, it's a matter of looking across the country. By the way, what's his name? Brumfield at UNLV.
Yes.
Started at quarterback over Harrison Bailey, who did not look good in his time. I think it was Idaho State. It's the question of how much do performances that, if a quarterback is good, if a team is good, and they look the part against a woefully outgunned opponent, how much do we say, okay, so if Drake Maye, who did what an excellent quarterback should do against Florida A&M, if he is the next Sam Howell, if he's the next whatever, prolific ACC quarterback, does that change what we think of the Tar Heels moving forward? I know they're at Miami. They have Notre Dame relatively early on. They'll have Wake later in the year, obviously NC State. So that at least gets that conversation going in a way that if Drake Maye was not super accurate or struggled a bit against Florida A&M, you would maybe adjust things the other way. But, if he's merely pretty good, he should have done this against Florida A&M. So it's how much do you believe in results against lower level opponents moving forward? And so, again, if Drake Maye is excellent, that changes things for North Carolina, whose big struggle has been on defense. So obviously there's the sliding scale of the better the quarterback, the less your defense has to do. But I don't think we can really draw anything big from the Florida State game because we already knew Jordan Travis was good. Maybe not excellent, but good.
You knew he was good. Well, we can't draw anything from it because it was against the Dukes of Duquesne.
Correct.
No disrespect to the Dukes, but
Drake Maye was an unknown quantity, whereas
Correct.
Jordan Travis we knew about and he looked
Absolutely.
like he should look. So that's at least something in the feather. My question to you is, and when you look at these results, and you brought up the App State North Carolina game coming up here, I'm a believer in heating up those tires in the way that last year UCLA I think ran all over Hawaii before beating LSU. I think there is something between your first and second game that when you have data on what is and what's not working, or who is and who's not working at safety, at left guard, or whatever, that's a supreme advantage. We saw Brian Kelly talk about that, right? Ahead of LSU, Florida State, that Florida State has the advantage of a little bit of momentum going into that game. LSU has the advantage of mystery. We don't know what LSU is going to try to do on both sides of the ball with all of these new coaches. So I'm a big believer in, you see the F1 cars, right? They do a couple laps around the track to get a little bit of feel on their tires.
And they're kind of swerving back and forth to keep the tires warm, yeah.
I'm a big believer in that being a significant advantage. Doesn't mean you're going to win the game, but I think it gives you a pretty significant bump over the team you're playing. And so with North Carolina ahead of App State, with Florida State ahead of LSU, I like those teams a lot more than if they hadn't. How about that?
Interestingly, I think I like the opposite side of both those bets.
Okay.
So we will have a lot to discuss in our week 1 preview.
I'm not making that pick. I'm just saying in terms of advantages, disadvantages, I think that's huge.
Well, it's huge for where we're at right now in the college football season.
Totally.
With week 1 on the horizon and with only a very limited amount of data to go on, it's at least something. That's part of the problem with doing a week 1 preview at all, making your picks. We have nothing to go on. All we can go on really for the first couple weeks of the season is the studying that we put in ahead of week 1, ahead of the season during our previews. Mm-hmm. And that changes. We have to adjust accordingly, but it makes it really tough to pick these games in the early part of the season. It's part of why picking against the spread is both feast and famine at the same time because Vegas doesn't really know either.
It's also why you need to have an Altar of Dan style rubric where you're like, if I don't believe in Scott Frost as an excellent coach, maybe in the United Kingdom, I really don't believe in him as a coach I can count on. So you have to think about the ethereal universe of college football sometimes early on in the season. We're like, oh man, a team who has struggled on offense traditionally going to a tough place to play against a good defense and they're favored on the road. I don't know. So you have to have that ethos in the back of your head early on in the season where you're like, this is what I believe in as a above average, sometimes below average college football picker. Mostly just a yodeler into a good microphone.
There is an advanced risk of hurting your shoulder, reaching behind yourself to give yourself a pat on the back at this early stage of the game, Dan. I would just warn you, I'd caution you against being too confident.
No, I hear you. I mean, as somebody who knows about stretching well into their 40s, I trust you, Ty. I'm a big believer in what you're selling. I'm a generation behind, so I'm still picking up all these factoids. Continue.
So other news that we have to discuss here is pretty much solely on the side of the fence as it relates to quarterback starters, Dan.
Yeah.
The big one for me that we do need to unpack here, we talked a little bit about it at the live show, obviously not nearly to the extent that we would like to. It's the Michigan thing. Really kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, it's in the Bible, apparently.
It's biblical. Yeah. Jim Harbaugh said that it's he said it's biblical.
It's a Solomon type. I'm not an expert. Continue. Yeah.
What he's decided is that Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy are going to split the first two games. Cade McNamara is going to get the first one. They're a 31-point favorite in week 1 against Colorado State. And J.J. McCarthy is going to get the second game. That's the Hawaii game. What he did not specify is what happens next. What happens after that? Is this an open competition? Is this throwing J.J. McCarthy some table scraps that he doesn't transfer because he knows he needs them? Like what? We don't know what happens after this. My assumption is that there is wiggle room here, that the only reason he is doing this is because it is something of an open competition and he wants to see what both can do in game action with this new roster of sorts, even though there's a lot back on offense. That being said, I cannot remember any instance in which a coach openly announced this timeshare before the season. We've certainly seen scenarios before where coaches have been out there and said, look, I like both quarterbacks. Both are going to see a fair amount of action and have an opportunity to contribute to the team. For what it's worth, my boy Brian Kelly down in Baton Rouge has said something similar. But to this extent, what Harbaugh has said, this feels like new territory for me.
You ever notice, Ty, that after somebody says something and then says that being said, it's here's what I really mean. That being said, here's something I'm lying about.
Having said that, let me say this.
Right.
Because that's a segment we're going to be doing after this, Ty, after further review. Having said that about some of our preview teams, we're updating our previews. I think you're completely correct. I think you're completely correct about the Michigan situation. And far be it for us to say whoever you select out of camp should be the guy and is the guy and should be treated the guy for 12 weeks, because this is a sport in which wrong decisions are made because we don't know what these guys are going to look like in games a lot of the times, right? You go back to Max Brown starting over Sam Darnold, and there were reasons for that because USC opened up with Alabama, and we've seen backups come in, and you're like, oh, why wasn't this guy starting the whole time? Why wasn't Tyler Van Dyke starting? And I get that you had, a 5th or 6th year senior that presented more in terms of a dual threat in De'Aaron King for Miami last year, but but Tyler Van Dyke was the better passer and the better option for a higher ceiling for that Miami offense. And so you really don't know what you have until you see it in a game. But Ty, Cade McNamara led this team to a playoff.
Exactly.
And it's
exactly.
okay.
And
continue.
I was going to say, that's why this feels a little bit weird to me, right? Like he wouldn't be doing this if he hadn't seen a full season of Cade McNamara just as like a tryout to see what he could do versus what J.J. McCarthy could do. The only two possibilities here are either A, he doesn't want J.J. to transfer, or B, it's still an open contest.
Right, but it's okay to say what Cade McNamara gave us last year was really good. But after fall camp, after spring camp, after seeing J.J. McCarthy in live action, because we did see J.J. McCarthy in meaningful live action last year, and what he has accomplished in camp, we think he has the bigger opportunity to give us a higher ceiling. He has a better opportunity to give us a higher ceiling, especially with what we have back on offense. I'm not saying that's the right move, but what I'm saying is there's data. And for Jim Harbaugh to say, we'll decide by late September, I think everybody should be rooting for the Colorado State Rams in whatever week 2, whenever they play, because the disrespect, which, by the way, is somewhat warranted with Hawaii and a restarting Colorado State team after what they did last year, is enormous. Is enormous for the you are fodder for us to determine a starting quarterback, and we'll win, but that's how we view you, and so that is incredible. It's Jim Harbaugh's job to find talent, to evaluate, to develop, and make a decision at quarterback. And the message it sends to me, to the rest of the team is, I don't know who should lead you. I don't know who gives you, the offensive line, who gives you, receivers and running backs, the best chance to succeed against the best teams. I don't know. And that is some garbage decision-making to me, Ty. It is.
Fair enough. I'm gonna pause at this point on the Michigan stuff because the game that we're going to get into a little bit later is called After Further Review.
True.
Where this gives us basically one last chance to speak our piece, to amend, to revise anything we said during the previews, because it's been a while. It's been a few weeks since we did those previews. So this is like the last chance before we do previews, before the season starts, to just kind of update where we stand on some of these teams. And as a result of this decision, I actually do have an update on the Michigan side.
Okay.
That I'll get into. Some of the other quarterback announcements of note: Auburn. The Calzada Armada has taken on some water, Dan.
Some water?
Yeah, as in he's not going to start. I saw some speculation he could be third on the depth chart, despite transferring over from Texas A&M in the offseason. It's going to be TJ Finley. TJ Finley, all 6'7", 250 of them. We should have drafted, maybe we can sub one of these in, the number of times that the announcers refer to TJ Finley as the, quote, big fella.
By his size, yeah.
The big fella down there at Auburn getting the nod. He did miss a chunk of, last season, or had to deal with an ankle injury last season. We saw some of that in the Alabama game. But this is a guy who also is a transferred over from LSU after the spring semester in 2021. Saw a little bit of action last season and has now won the job for Brian Harsin and the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah. I don't feel amazing about it, but I didn't feel amazing about Zach Calzada if he were to win that job. And he obviously, I think, is still rumored to be dealing with the shoulder issues that plagued him at the end of last year. So who knows what we would have from a fully healthy Zach Calzada. But yeah, we kind of know what we have in TJ Finley. Big arm, athletic ability.
A big fella. Don't forget big fella.
Yeah, I don't think the big dudes will get as much attention for their size as like an especially little dude. Like Deuce Vaughn's size will come up more than TJ Finley's size in Kansas State games and in TJ Finley's Auburn games. But yeah, I don't think expectations are particularly enormous, but a surprise call. I mean, Haynes King, I think that was from the outside a little bit more of a back and forth battle, given the high profile nature of Max Johnson transferring to A&M.
Yep, Sam Conn Jr., who we had on this show, Sam Conn Jr. from The Athletic, who was on this show back in April when we were doing our Spring Snapshots series. He spoke at length about Jimbo's fascination with Haynes King.
Yeah.
And just if you project forward some of what Jimbo said about Haynes King last year when he named him starter before the injury, that would bode well for his chances to, again, recapture that number one spot. He has done that. So he's getting the nod ahead of Max Johnson, ahead of Connor Wegman, both of whom, per Jimbo, can run the offense effectively, who look good in spring camp. But he obviously likes what he has with Haynes King, much more of a dual threat guy than someone like a Max Johnson. Haynes King can definitely be more on the go outside the pocket and give this offense an extra dynamic. So I'm curious to see what he can do healthy. I hope he stays healthy. certainly with all the talent they've got in College Station, it could be an exciting new chapter for that program.
Yeah, I think more than anything, this year is on Jimbo and the offensive staff and the aggression that they do or don't show. Because if we're to believe Haynes King is at least pretty good, now he's won that job twice. So the offensive staff believes in him. The offensive line should be good. They return a bunch inside on that line. Receiver should be better than it's been probably at all times during the duration of Jimbo's tenure there. Just the youth and the experience, and running back / slot back should be in a really good place. And so it almost feels like this is fully on the offensive minds behind this team, more so than the actual talent, more than ever. Because if there's been a criticism of Texas A&M's offense these past few years, it's they're not maximizing what they could be because of the conservative nature of some of the play calling. And so this, to me, I think the spotlight is on Jimbo and the staff more so than it is on Haynes King and the players around him.
And last but certainly not least, my man, a Southern Brian Kelly, says he knows. I love this. Yeah. He knows who he's picking, but he's keeping it secret.
That's okay.
It's a tactical advantage to not announce it in advance, which, by the way, I kind of agree with. This is like your one shot to keep a lid on it.
Right.
Keep a lid on it. Why not? But here is where it gets into the full-fledged Brian Kelly quarterback controversy territory that I want, that I need, that I crave. Quote, "This is not a 1 and 2, Kelly said.
Of course.
And both of them are obviously going to contribute this year."
By the way,
he's leaving that door open, man. He's leaving that door open for the full, like, Lay's potato chip, can't pick just one approach to selecting a quarterback. He's leaving that door open. I'm telling you, LSU fans, it will happen. There will be controversy, short of one of these guys coming in, whether it's Garrett Nussmeier or Jaden Daniels, coming in and being a full-fledged dynamo running that system, the Mike Denbrock offensive system. Short of that, there will be a moment this season where there is a controversy about who the starter should be. I guarantee it.
It's not a good fantasy thing because it doesn't happen all season long, but it's an incredible camp fantasy thing to select. I really do think we have two guys who could run this offense. I really do think both guys. I think we're fortunate to have 2-3 guys that we really feel good about. That's a really quality fantasy thing. I think it's going to be Nussmeier. I think he will have that opportunity, but yeah, both of these guys are pocket passers. It's not like you are preparing for one guy running the option and one guy, behaving like Drew Bledsoe or something. They're going to run the same offense with both of these guys. And so I don't know how Florida State would be better prepared unless you feel like Jaden Daniels' seasoning means he will be confused less by defenses and that you can sort of throw things at Garrett Nussmeier that might throw him off. But no, I think either way, either one of these guys will probably succeed to a respectable level in week 1 against Florida State. But why name somebody? Why name a starter if you don't have to? If you're not forced to, and if the team is okay with it, I just don't want to be week 1 we're starting this guy, week 2 we're starting that guy. I think that's dumb. But if you're going to your team behind closed doors and saying this is our guy, let's go. Let's ride. That's goodbye.
I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. Let's see how it materializes.
Did you like Pat Narduzzi naming West Virginia's starting quarterback ahead of the backyard brawl? He's like, I'm going to save you all a lot of time. It's JT Daniels. Oh my God. I like that. Pat Narduzzi.
I like a spicy Pat Narduzzi. Is just what we need.
Calling out Mark Whipple, calling out USC and Lincoln Riley, making light of Neil Brown, saying, "Oh, we'll see what we do." When JT Daniels came in as a transfer, I've enjoyed the Pat Narduzzi offseason.
Being a slightly more grounded, more controversial, as it relates to college football version of Mike Leach.
Mm-hmm.
Up north, that'll play in Pittsburgh.
By the way,
that'll play well in Pittsburgh.
The deep nerdiness in college football is getting pumped like you did about Drew Allar being named the backup, the race for number 2. You were all in and excited about that.
True backup, potentially better than the starter territory here.
Yeah.
Truly. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Penn State grad, so
I know.
A little bit biased, but yeah, that is the deep cut that really got the juices flowing.
Oregon has not named its starter at quarterback, presumed to be Bo Nix, and Kirby Smart in his, I think, opening week presser said, I know who it's going to be. Okay, you guys can have, I know who it's going to be. So, yeah, Oregon didn't officially name anybody. I'm trying to think of other high-profile programs who haven't named anybody or are being
Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati, under his vest.
Haven't seen anything Cincinnati yet.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be interesting. There has been some curious line movement that we will discuss on our preview show tomorrow about that Cincinnati-Arkansas game. Very much flying under the radar, Dan.
Oh, I can't wait for it.
There are a bunch of really big games in week one. Cincinnati-Arkansas not getting the press that I believe it should.
Okay.
And we'll discuss a little bit more why that is on the next episode.
All right. Are there any other high-profile quarterback positions, races? Has TCU named a starter?
TCU has not. They've said that they might play all three in game one.
We got three guys we think can run this offense. Yeah.
Definite fantasy thing for next year. Shout out to Chris, to Kale, to Andrew, to Dan, Redder, folks who are watching along live as we do this here after further review episode. We're going to dive in to our game after further review, but it is brought to you today by our good friends over at College Football Thursdays, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
That's us.
Yeah, we are the friends. We're the college football friends.
We're all friends here. Listen live on Spotify, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, College Football Thursdays. It is the live experience, if you will, that we are advertising all throughout the course of the college football season. We're going to be doing it every Thursday night live over on Spotify. We've had amazing Verballer turnout, amazing Verballer interaction through the first 2 weeks. I would expect it's going to be amped up to 1,000 because not only do we have games in this here week one on Saturday, we also have games that are going to follow the live broadcast. Those being the backyard brawl between West Virginia and Pitt. Obviously, Penn State Purdue gets played an hour after that one. So a lot to discuss. We're going to be getting all into this. We're going to be doing Ty versus the world with other picks now that I assure you I'll get right. Don't worry. Playing games, doing the thing that we did last Thursday. We would invite everybody to come on in. You can listen. It's free. You can join the chat. You can hop up on stage with us and give us your thoughts.
Solidverbal.com/Spotify.
Solidverbal.com/Spotify. That's right. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
After further review, give me that sound, please.
Having said that, let me say this.
Right.
That's from Seinfeld, right?
Curb. That was Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, but yes.
I
Seinfeld
did catch
adjacent.
Seinfeld. What is this game?
So we previewed a ton of teams, 100 and some odd teams going into the season, all of the Power 5 conferences, all of the G5 conferences, most of the independents, but we didn't go deep into the independents. But what did we discuss? Notre Dame, BYU, and Army?
Army, yep.
Yeah, I think that's what we hit on in terms of independence. And now we've had the opportunity, because we recorded it a few weeks ago, to sort of let our opinions marinate, to let our opinions dry age or wet age or whatever you want to call it if we are considering our evaluations to be beef. I don't know.
Cuts of meat?
Cuts of meat? I wouldn't recommend aging all different cuts of meat. Certain ones are better than others. So we're just going to look and say, okay, we are updating. Maybe it's based on who was named quarterback or wasn't named quarterback. Maybe it's based on injuries. Maybe it's based on just a nagging feeling in our guts that we didn't nail what we now feel about a certain team. So are there teams that we feel like we want to update our opinions on? Maybe it's because we thought about their schedule a little bit more. Maybe it's because in retrospect, maybe they won too many games by 1 or 2 points last year, and we don't think that kind of winning style can hold up 2 years in a row. Is there anybody or anybody's that you want to update your evaluation of?
I've got 4 teams here.
Okay.
4 teams that I previewed as part of our 10-part preview series, which, by the way, if you're listening to this in the run-up to week 1, you can still go back and listen to all of those. It's free. Binge them. Maybe you got some travel. Maybe you're at work. Throw in your headphones. Give it a listen and get yourself up to speed. I think most of what we had to say is still fairly accurate, but I did want to offer some further clarity on some of the points that I brought up. There are some situations, not necessarily teams that I suddenly dislike
Right.
You know, we don't have a whole lot to go on, but there are some, I think, interesting wrinkles now. The Michigan one, which we discussed earlier, I'll bring that one up as well. But interesting wrinkles that maybe give me more confidence, less confidence, that sort of thing as we go through here.
Totally. Okay. Who's number one?
Let's start with Baylor.
They were on my list too.
Good. Well, I'm glad.
Okay.
I'm glad Baylor's on here. How do you feel about Baylor? Do you feel better or worse about Baylor? Because I feel like with what I said, that was construed as, oh, Ty hates Baylor.
Right.
Which is not really what I was going for, because I still think this will be a good team, if only because they're going to be very solid in the trenches. And when you've got a good coach, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
My comments on Baylor were construed as Baylor hate, not what I was going for. And I think the reason that I was down on Baylor and still am to some extent is because I just feel like there are so many key positions where we don't have answers. It doesn't mean they won't have answers. I just don't know what they are right now.
Okay. I'm a little bit more down on Baylor myself than I think I was on the preview, because I've talked about Baylor as potentially being one of those wild card next new playoff teams. Not this year necessarily, but with the defense that I think that this team can grow. That's not English. With a potentially interesting defense, and they have an All-American candidate at nose this year in Apuika, the LSU transfer. It's intriguing to me, Baylor in the medium term. This year, the number of new things worries me, and the number of times that they had to come back or sneak away with a win late or lost something dumb in the way that they did in the rivalry to TCU, still won the conference. I just think that there is going to be a little bit of balance this year, that they could still go 9-3, 8-4, but I don't see them contending at the end of the year for the Big 12 championship game.
I would define myself as a Baylor skeptic.
Okay.
A Baylor skeptic. They've got a new full-time quarterback who we like. We like Blake Shapen.
I think I like him more than Bohannon, yeah.
We like him. I think he definitely gives them more upside. He flashed at moments last season. But they need to replace Abram Smith, who was crazy productive at running back. And look, I know what you're going to say. Oh, well, you can replace a running back.
Replace a running back, yep.
You can replace a running back. Don't disagree with that. There's a lot of production walking out the door, right? A lot of production walking out the door. We'll see what they can do. 2 starting wide receivers need to be replaced. Terrell Bernard at linebacker, who was a big deal, and Jalen Petrie at the star position. It was a big deal in that defense. He was a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. That is a lot to walk out the door.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that Baylor and a good coach, Dave Aranda, can't recover from that? No, of course they can. I think the Big 12 might be the most wide open conference in all of college football.
Sure.
Could they win it? Sure, they could win it. Oklahoma's turning over. Texas is, perpetually maybe back. We don't know. So I think there's obviously a pathway here, but the combination of turnover at skill positions and key positions on defense with an iffy schedule, frankly, it's not an easy schedule. That 1-2 punch to me, I think, is just what I'm clarifying on the Baylor side. I haven't seen a whole lot that gives me more confidence. I really just wanted to reemphasize my stance on the Bears here. I feel pretty much the same as I did at the start of the season, but at the start of the previous season, excuse me. I just felt the need to redefine why I feel that way.
Yeah, I think Baylor's going to be in a really good place. Maybe it's a talent thing to me. Maybe it's a star power thing year over year, that Baylor played super well last year. They lost key pieces on both sides, and right now it's just a depth and star power thing. And year over year, is it a winter wonder thing? Are they a Waco version of Wisconsin, where they'll year in and year out find guys to plug in and be all conference caliber defensive players, but not find receivers? I think it's easier to find receivers in Texas, obviously, but that to me is the worry. That Are they moving to a place where they're beating more and more teams by double digits? And that sometimes can be harder without star power at receiver, star power in the secondary. They gave up a few too many big plays last year. I think that's going to get corrected. I think they're going to be better year over year on defense. But again, it is sort of the star power thing to me that I don't know if it's quite there yet.
Give me another one of your teams that you're
Arkansas.
taking another. Really?
I am a
You
little
love
bit.
Arkansas.
I know I love my Hogs, and I still love the Hogs, and I still think they're going to have a very fun year. I think I may have underestimated the loss of Treylon Burks. I think when you have that kind of game-changing gravitational receiver, maybe I'm putting too much importance with both of these teams on receiver, and they hit the portal hard on both sides of the ball, including bringing in, I think Jaden Hazelwood was the number one receiver in his class.
Hazelwood, I mean, that's not a bad
It's not nothing.
substitute.
No. But the worry for me, and again, they hit the portal on defense. There's intriguing talent on defense. The worry for me is with this specific schedule that Arkansas has, and what they have BYU, Liberty, and Cincinnati in the non-conference. It's just the idea of adding that on top of their SEC schedule in the no weeks off thing, and I think they're doing better in terms of depth. The offensive line should be good, should hold up, but that is just nonstop. It's a tidal wave of difficulty. I still love KJ Jefferson. I still love what they have at offensive skill, but it's what they were able to do because they had one of the 3 or 4 best receivers in the country and the types of attention that attracted. That is to me an Arkansas team that could go from having a really strong offense to just a good offense. And that could be the difference between winning a game 31-28 and losing it 31-28. So I have them as a comfortable bowl team, but I have a pit in my stomach. Sam Pitt. I am terrible, Ty. I didn't plan for that, and I regret it immediately. I will issue a written apology. I'm just more worried than I was during preview season about the Hogs. How about that?
I think that's fair, and I am going to, again, pause in discussing Arkansas and or Cincinnati further, because I think you are speaking a lot of truth, most of which I have jotted down for our show tomorrow when we preview that game between Cincinnati and Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating game. Fascinating game that should be getting more publicity, and it isn't.
Yeah. All right. Who do you have next?
I've got Texas Tech.
Yeah, good job. Finally, get this in. Get this on the record.
Yeah, I've got Texas Tech. I spent so much time oogling over the odd scenarios in which other teams play Texas Tech that I forgot to mention. You did not. You brought this up. I forgot to mention the teams that they are actually playing.
Yeah.
Right? It's great that you have Oklahoma in a weird spot on Oklahoma's schedule. It is also not great that you play Oklahoma at all. It is also not great that you've got Tyler Shuck running your quarterback-centric, quarterback-dependent system under Zach Kitley, and A, we don't know if he can stay healthy, and B, he's still Tyler Shuck.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in Joey McGuire. I think Joey McGuire is a good hire. I think in the state of Texas, he will find a way to harness talent. I think he is a master motivator. I think he will have that team playing hard each and every week. I love that
like
move.
a Sam Pittman type, if you will.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love the hire. I think they did a great job going out and getting him.
Okay.
I think in time that will pay dividends. Might have been a bit excessive for me to go out there and declare Texas Tech this uber wild card in the Big 12 season, knowing all of these things and just focusing in solely on that schedule. I do believe what I said earlier. I believe they will dump somebody. I think there will be a Texas Tech upset at some point this season. But I mean, I was kind of talking them up as maybe a 7-5 team.
Yeah. Which
I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit.
Somebody's got to go 5-7, 4-8 in a conference. Yeah.
I know. So I'm just going to pull that throttle back a little bit from 110 to like 80%.
All right.
For Texas Tech.
I want to go with a Pac-12 team here. I think if there's any team that appears to be disastrous that might not be disastrous, I hate to do it, but sometimes there is something about rock bottom, Ty. Sometimes rock bottom can be made of rubber and you have a nice bounce back. And it's nice to have a quarterback with upside to do that thing.
Where are we going with this?
I was really down on Stanford. I think they might be okay.
Oh, here we go. Come on, bring it on.
When I say okay,
I want to hear it.
It could just mean 5-win okay. Tanner McKee was beat up. They look again. One could argue that they had the worst offense in America relative to talent and intention. with what they were not able to accomplish on offense last year. Still beat Oregon, still beat Mario Cristobal, as you like to say, and the Oregon Ducks, short Joe Moorhead. But that is, to me, Stanford, I think they could be extremely diet Utah in a conference with a number of teams with new head coaches, that Stanford is a team not good, but good enough to expose flaws.
Join me. I want you to join me.
Okay.
On my week 2 bandwagon that has Stanford upsetting USC. Will you join me on that bandwagon?
I don't think I can go that far. Their
will you
defense
at least
is still
take
not
the
that
points?
great.
Will you at least take the points?
Depends what the points are.
It's double dig.
Where's the game? Palo Alto or LA?
I have to check. I think it's at Palo Alto.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, though, so don't hold me to that. Will you join? Just think about it. You don't have to give me an answer now. Sleep on it.
Yeah.
Whatever you do.
I almost think it's like even season Cardinal or something like that, in the way that maybe these programs, whether it's an academic institution or whatever, that Stanford won a bunch of games close, I believe, in 2020 in the COVID year. I mean, they didn't even play a bunch of games, play like 4 or 5 games. And then last year were a disaster. Like, there's maybe just they're the type of program. And look, they didn't hit the portal at all. So there's not an overwhelming reason to say this team plugged in a number of holes in the way that a number of other teams, update their roster and improve their roster. So that's worrisome to me for sure. But to have your starting place be a high ceiling quarterback and a pretty good offensive line, if not good offensive line, experienced receivers, they gave away games last year. You look at where they were against UCLA. I just think they're a candidate to win more than I thought going into the season.
Was it PFF, Pro Football Focus, who was really high on Tanner McKee?
Yes. I think a lot of people are, and rightfully so. He just made a bad decision to go to a place with a stale offense.
Yeah. All right. Stanford, Dan, join me. Week 2. I want to go to UCF.
Oh, okay.
UCF, a bit of a surprise announcement, although...
John Reese.
Is
it Reese? I've heard Rice.
I'm going Reese, man.
All right. I'm looking this up for definitive, but I remember him being John Rice Plumlee at Ole Miss.
I've seen that name before, and you say it Reese. John Reese Plumlee is how I'm...
I know you're choosing that, but
that is my decision.
Okay.
Him winning that job, it caught me by surprise. UCF people who have been following the circumstance have said that should not have really been a surprise to you, but
right.
It did kind of catch me off guard because I thought Mikey Keene made some strides last season. I'm excited about this. I was high on UCF before this move, and I think it means a higher ceiling for UCF in 2022. This is a team, remember, they've got 14 starters back. The schedule is not bad at all. And I think because of John Reese Plumlee now,
it is Rice
running this.
It is Rice.
John Reese Plumlee, excuse me, Dan.
No, I'm just telling you. I just confirmed it.
John Reese Plumlee.
Committing to the bit.
I think because of him being named the starter, this should feel a lot like Gus Malzahn Auburn. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Okay.
I think with what we saw last season, how he adapted that offense to Mikey Keene after the Dylan Gabriel injury, that was very admirable. Mikey Keene did a good job. 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I've read those stats off time and again, but this is going to look like a lot like a Nick Marshall type of offense at UCF. And I think that means the offense could be really interesting. I was high on this team before. I said I could see a path to 10-2. If they could run the Gus offense against this schedule, there is a path to 12-0.
Yeah.
There is a path to 12-0 with this type of quarterback running that offense effectively.
Okay. So I'm a team player here, Ty. I want to yes and your points because I want to make you shine.
Thank you.
UCF last year was a good, explosive running team. I expect John Rice Plumlee, yes, I'm going up against your commitment.
Reese.
I expect him to be a weapon on the ground and probably an improvement through the air, but that being somewhat of an afterthought. Again, I'm trying to be a team player here. UCF last year finished as the 102nd most efficient passing team and went 3 and out more often than 96 teams in the country. They were 97, 32% of the time they went 3 and out. So the place in which they were starting offensively, it's not like anybody had secured this job 100%. So I just think you're right that they're going to hopefully resemble what they look like at Auburn with Nick Marshall, and with the focus being the rushing attack. But I just think they become a really fun team when they build the whole plane out of running the ball. And so that's where they're going. That's where UCF is going this year.
Maybe the right way to characterize my thought on UCF is that this makes them more fun.
Yeah.
This makes them more fun. It might not mean 12-0, though I do see a path. The schedule is beautiful. If you look at this thing, I mean, they could make a run through this if they can figure out some of those issues that plagued them last season.
A mostly good defense last year to build on. Yeah.
Mostly good defense. It definitely makes them more fun. It steers into what we know of Gus Malzahn.
Yeah. Okay.
On offense, at least. Give me another team. You got any other teams?
I'm a little bit, well, I was going to mention Fresno, that I'm not quite as high because I'm a little bit worried about following up that kind of season. I was very high on Kansas State. I'm going to stick to it. I'm doubling down.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm going to be...
Oh, yeah, brother.
I'm a believer in most instances of blaming and rewarding places over coaches and players sometimes. And I am, even though I know what the Adrian Martinez experience is like, I think there is something stable about Manhattan, Kansas that's going to work to his advantage, that we're seeing that Nebraska as a place does not necessarily put all of its players all of the time in the best position to win games. So that's what the advantage, like maybe we're higher on Oklahoma now that we know what they have in Nebraska-ish. I don't know. I'm going to be a little bit more worried about Iowa this year. I know I picked them.
Hold on. We need to go back here for a second.
Sorry. Continue.
For all the crap you gave me about being the welcome committee on the island of misfit quarterbacks.
Totally.
And of orphan quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You are doubling down on Adrian Martinez. I'm going to write this down somewhere.
Please, you should.
Continue.
Okay. Adrian Martinez it's in that Spencer Sanders vein, who you've also always believed in.
Never.
You've always believed in Spencer Sanders. No, I know. Spencer Sanders had too many years where he weirdly led the country in interception ratio. That's the issue for me with Spencer Sanders. It's just a turnover thing in those bigger moments, because he actually does get better year over year. It's injury and it's turnovers in his case. Okay. Adrian Martinez last year finished as a top, it looks like number 17 in the nation in terms of yards per attempt. And Adrian Martinez was not good in terms of rating. So it's a turnover thing for Adrian Martinez. But I think there's a Nebraska thing here, Ty. I really do think there's a Nebraska thing. And I'm not a big believer in these guys who turn the ball over too much and are too much of a wild card. And that's what worries me about Bo Nix at Oregon. But specifically with Kansas State, he is entering into a more stable situation. And a lot of these guys
I would agree with that sentiment for sure.
So I just don't think he's going to be asked to single-handedly win as much as he perhaps was at Nebraska, or felt like he had to at Nebraska on that offense. I'm saying Iowa, who I picked to win the Big Ten West, because I watched them last year on offense, and I can't imagine that they're going to be in that double-digit win conversation with a much harder schedule and nothing changing on offense, to me, for the better. That they didn't get 3 beat-up receivers back after they missed a good chunk of last year. That they didn't go out and hire the next great FCS offensive coordinator who was getting more out of less in whatever conference. That they didn't bring in a transfer quarterback who showed promise as a backup somewhere big last year. That they said offensively, yeah, it looks like just stay the course. Stay the course. And I had them winning the West with a more difficult schedule and not making changes on offense. The defense should still be incredible and force a bunch of turnovers and maybe have one of the best 3 corners in the country in Riley Moss. But still, I think there are 3 or 4 losses to this team rather than like the couple. I don't know what that means for who wins the division, but I think I saw them as a 9 or 10. I think it's more 7-8 this year in terms of a win total.
I saw a poster once that said, "We promote family values here almost as much as we promote family members."
Mm-hmm. Great.
It's a little bit how I feel about the Brian Ferentz move.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
We did our Fantasy Things live show in Chicago, and afterwards the Q&A, which you can listen to verballers.com if you sign up. We had 3 Iowa questions in a row from people who stepped up to the mic and had varying questions about the Hawkeyes this coming season. And you can sense kind of that feeling from pretty much every Iowa fan that we've interacted with. Everyone's happy that they've been successful. Everyone knows there's more there.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that they could be doing better than they've been if perhaps they would make some changes on offense. It's not lost on any Iowa fans that this is a thing just hanging out there. And I don't know, like I feel like the Iowa thing for me every year, it's never a surprise.
Right.
It's really only a surprise when they win like 10 games because of the manner in which they do it. They're winning with defense. They're running the ball. They're dealing with an embattled quarterback on some level. It's never really a surprise to me. So I don't know if I need to clarify anything on that front. I sort of always feel the same about the Hawkeyes.
Okay. I mean, same. I was just hoping that offensively there was a more significant move than we got the best tight end from the Patriot League, and we're hoping that'll change everything. That is worrisome to me because they're always good at tight end. That's not a question. So yeah, that is my update there in terms of. Okay. Is there any team that you because I mentioned Stanford that you were like, you know what, I like this team a lot more than I originally did, and I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I want to talk about Michigan.
I know you said UCF would be more fun, but actually like nuts and bolts, wins, losses.
I want to talk about Michigan.
Okay.
A little bit in that vein. First off, we did the Big Ten East preview weeks ago. We posted many of these team previews out to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is, and I knew this, but this kind of confirmed it, never underestimate a Michigan fan's ability to take something personally.
Of course.
Never underestimate that.
But that's everybody, isn't it?
It's Michigan and Oklahoma, specifically this offseason.
Yeah, that's true.
Never underestimate that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I made a comment to the effect of, hey, they're losing a lot on defense. And that kind of worries me. Like, guys don't just like step in and become David Ojabo or Aiden Hutchinson overnight.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was like, well, you don't understand.
Right.
We have blue chippers at every position.
Yeah.
It's fine. Great.
Friends, we almost lost to Rutgers. So,
yeah. And they're still going to lose to Ohio State this year.
Wow.
Don't say I didn't warn you. But that being said, the quarterback thing is interesting to me. It is bizarre. It is very poor decision-making by Jim Harbaugh. But I think it definitely signals that there is some wiggle room here. That it might not be ironclad, that Jim Harbaugh is just going to go with what got him there last year in the form of Cade McNamara. The over-under for Michigan is 9.5. I said on the preview that I saw a 9-3 floor and 11-1 ceiling.
Okay.
I don't necessarily feel any differently about that projection.
Okay.
But
why are you bringing them up?
I'm bringing them up because if there is a pathway for this to be J.J. McCarthy's team, the offense could be a lot more explosive. The team could be a lot more fun to watch. And it could signal that there is an added gear here for the Wolverines that we have not been able to fully realize. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 11-1 isn't the ceiling. Maybe they could beat Ohio State if they find a way to put a defense out there, if they can continue that bully ball that they won with last season, and if now they've got a true dual threat at quarterback.
Right.
If they go with J.J. McCarthy. I feel like we've been waiting for this thing to really take flight, the dual threat quarterback angle thing to take flight up at Michigan. And it hasn't happened yet. They've gone with a guy in Cade McNamara who was responsible with the football. We knew the promise of J.J. McCarthy was potentially exciting. We just have not been able to see it with any great,
with big data. There's not a lot of data points. Yeah, sample size.
Yeah, there's just the sample size is very limited. So I understand this might be a bit of a wig and a prayer, but the idea of a very effective dual threat quarterback in that system where you know you've got to stack the box, you know you could potentially be dealing with a very physical brand of offense. Now having a guy who can get outside the pocket, who can run with it, who can do more read option stuff, who can stretch the field with his arm. Like, there's a lot there that I don't think I was able to bake into my preview because I just assumed it was going to be Cade McNamara. So that to me is potentially very exciting. And it could make Michigan's offense a whole lot better than I was expecting whenever we recorded that preview.
Yeah. But the subtext of this kind of decision-making, if we can go back to it, is kind of hope Cade McNamara is not good against Colorado State, right? That there is some sort of indicator because so Colorado State will have a better defense than Hawaii. So if Cade McNamara takes care of business and is efficient and looks like a slightly improved version of what we saw last year, who was a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, not going downfield all the time successfully, but a good, beat good teams, beat Iowa, beat Ohio State, made plays in those games. So if he's once again good and J.J. McCarthy is great against an even worse Hawaii team, I know you can say like, okay, we're going in and looking at the specific tape and throws and what he did in terms of reading defense is doing what we asked him to do. But if neither one of them is bad, if neither one of them is clearly worse against a substandard opponent, what do you actually have to make, like, why not just say, when as Oregon fans, the school tells Duck fans, wear yellow this week, wear white this week, wear black this week, right? To support the uniform color because there are so many, that's like an Oregon quirk thing. Like, why not already announce all of the starting quarterback season? Like, why not say, okay, against Iowa, it's going to be J.J. McCarthy, but against Penn State, it's going to be Cade McNamara. Like, what you can glean against these two teams is minimal if they're both good. So the subtext is, we hope Cade McNamara makes it easy for us, right?
I think so. I think so, but I am taking a more glass half full.
I hear you.
Approach on this. I agree. It's weird, man. Like, just pick a guy.
Yeah.
Name J.J. McCarthy the starter, and if he bombs, then go back to Cade McNamara. You know what you have there.
Mm-hmm.
The manner in which he is conducting this open quarterback search through the first 2 weeks of the season is just weird. I can't remember a circumstance where we've seen anything like this at all. But
I think in this scenario, this makes Jim Harbaugh Felicity at the center of a big, high-profile love triangle. I know one of them was Ben, maybe Noel? Was that okay, continue.
It does have a little bit of that flair to it.
Yeah.
It gives me some optimism, though, that we could be seeing a fully unleashed Michigan offense with a dual-threat quarterback. Big assumption that J.J. McCarthy is good. We've seen flashes.
No, I mean, we've seen flashes of being good. Yeah. No,
over the span of a full season, we don't know that. But
for sure.
I think it gives me a renewed sense of optimism that we could see a more explosive version of what was very good last year for them.
Yep.
And that would be cool. That would be great for Michigan fans to be able to have that as, hopefully by the point later in the season, week 13, have that as a fully mature portion of their offense that they could deploy against Ohio State.
Yeah, somewhere
They'd
Steve
still
Spurrier.
lose. They'd still lose,
Yeah.
But it'd be a better game.
Somewhere Steve Spurrier is saying, wait, I was allowed to do that? I was allowed to just call out who's starting various games, but he likes doing it between plays, between drives, everything like that. But man, Brian Kelly, I'm sure, is inspired.
Oh, Brian Kelly. He'd put them both on the field at the same time. He might do that this year.
That's the secret, man.
Don't put it past him. Don't put it past him to put Jaden Daniels in the backfield.
Okay. And we'll see what happens. We'll see. That's definitely, to me, the reading between the lines is we really hope one of them is average. We really hope one of them isn't that good, because J.J. McCarthy looking like a superstar, Cade McNamara looking like a superstar, and like Colorado State again had a pretty decent pass defense last year, but if they both just look as good as expected, it doesn't say a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty divisive to me, but yeah, it's like Team Cade, Team JJ. Cool.
We shall see. All right. Any other teams that you want to call out?
I don't think so. I'm standing by my evaluations because nobody knows anything, right?
Nobody knows a damn thing.
If I'm wrong about Oregon State, or I'm wrong about Florida, or I'm wrong about Minnesota, everybody was. Nobody knows anything. That's fine.
Nobody knows anything. So we would encourage everybody, please go on out to verballers.com. That is our Patreon. We want you to play our game called Run the Board.
Yes.
All right. So you can either sign up at verballers.com if you just want to go and check out the Patreon tiers, which we tweaked and updated and made some amendments to. Or you can go on out to just playruntheboard.com, which is the site that we built specifically for this game. Learn more about it. You pick 10 games a week. Your lowest 2 weeks are dropped. At the end, the top 5 get immediately elected to our board of trustees. Along the way, we do have weekly prizes that we'll be giving out. We had discussed something, Dan, like if you win one of the weeks, you get to give us a team or a game or something that you want us to focus on.
Yes.
When we do like a Wednesday show.
Yeah, deep dive team.
We will do that, right? I think that's still on the table.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. If you win the week and you are a Georgia State fan, great. Let's talk some Panthers on our Wednesday show. Let's dive a little bit deeper than just dipping our toes into that content water, Ty.
Playruntheboard.com is more info on how you can sign up. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you have not done so. If you've made it this far, hopefully you like what you heard. Subscribing to the show really helps us. That is one way you can support the show.
Yeah.
If verballers.com is not for you. We've also got solidgiveaway.com. There's a Michael Mayer helmet. It's signed. It's behind me. Mm-hmm. It is looming large, just like the big fella himself. As I do this episode each and every seemingly day now as we get into the season. Michael Mayer, the helmet is behind me. You can win it. I will send it to your house. Go to solidgiveaway.com to learn about the steps that you need to go through.
Yeah.
In order to win it. And don't forget College Football Thursdays. Every Thursday, live over on Spotify at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't think I forgot anything, did I?
No, I just wanted to can I use a corporate term? Close the loop on something? Is that a thing?
Please.
Close the loop?
Very much so.
I just want to say I had such an incredible time with you at the Fantasy Things show in Chicago. I had an incredible time meeting listeners, seeing everybody. You know, it's been a couple years since we were able to do this live show. It brings me a whole lot of joy to do this show in front of people, and it seemed people had a good time. We shook a lot of hands, we kissed a lot of babies. We didn't eat tots though. We had a little bit of Thai food.
No tots.
It was very literal. We had some eating Thai food before the show, but it always warms my heart to see everybody because we are doing this show, looking into screens, speaking to walls. And so luckily we are doing 3 more of these over the course of the season. We're going to be in New York in October. We're going to be in Atlanta the night before the SEC championship game in December. And we're going to be in LA the Saturday night before the national championship game that's being played at SoFi Stadium. And I guarantee you, if you like the show, you will have a fun time. If you have the disposable income, we'd love to see you and break bread and make college football goofs. Obviously, we're not doing fantasy things these next 3 shows, but solidverballive.com or smelltieshair.com would be the easiest way for you to procure tickets if they're still available.
Nope, nobody tried.
Nobody tried,
but on our Brew and A episode, either this coming episode or one that comes up soon, we can detail the elaborate lengths that we went to in the green room.
Yeah, we had a green room situation with you.
To ensure that there was not a smelling of Ty's hair situation.
Yeah, true.
But that's only for verballers.com.
Verballers.com for more details about a green room emergency. That's it.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildebrandt. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to preview all that week 1 has to offer. But in the meantime, thanks again for listening, supporting, downloading, and playing along with our wackiness. We'll talk to you soon. Stay solid.
Peace.